Okay, imagine a glass of water. Just water. Boring, right? Now, before you roll your eyes at me, let me ask you a question. Is it half full or half empty? Classic. You've heard it 1,000 times. One person sees it as half full and they're the optimist. The other sees it as half empty and we brand them as the pessimist. But have you ever considered what if both of these answers are wrong? Think about it. Both the answers are logged in the same binary lens of the positive and the negative, but neither actually changes the frame, they just argue within it. You see, when you answer this question, you're using your frame of reference, which is the way you see the world. But you're not seeing the full picture. So here's my suggestion. Instead of being stuck in this half full versus half empty debate, what if we just ditch this question entirely and ask something else completely different? Let me rewind. You know how everyone talks about the trauma of being compared to some perfect kid? I mean, I'm pretty sure your parents have told you at least once, oh, why can't you be more like that topper? Huh? Look at them and look at you. Well, here's a story that you haven't heard. I was that perfect kid, the one your parents warned you about. I was basically a walking resume. National Spell Bee winner, holding multiple leadership positions, and topping the entire batch. But here's the thing. Being that perfect kid is really not that great. I mean, someone's got to say it. Because if there was any competition or a program or an opportunity, my name came up. Always. And I said yes. Not because I was forced to, but just became a part of who I was. So at this point, since I was saying yes to everything, I was juggling 2 competitions and 3 different programs each week. But here's the part no one saw. I was also exhausted, mentally exhausted, because I had tied my worth to winning. So losing even 1 mark on a test was enough to send me into a spiral. Slipping on a line during a speech, even if the audience didn't notice, I would notice, and I wouldn't let myself forget about it. You see, I didn't need criticism from anyone else because I was already my biggest competitor, my harshest coach, and truthfully, my worst enemy. The truth, I was glitching. But so does every computer. The human mind works just like one. Think of it this way. Neurons fire like circuits. Synapses basically act like processors. We take in inputs, information, expectations, pressure, and we run it through a coded system that has been built over years. But what happens when that system is flawed? What happens when you've written your entire internal system on one belief, you're only as good as your last win? You're bound to crash. And that was what was happening to me. Every small error became some kind of a virus I couldn't debug. Every almost perfect felt like a failure. Until one night, it was 12:30 a.m. I still remember it was my finals, and I was rereading the same line over and over again, but nothing was registering in my brain. At that moment, something in me snapped. I realized I didn't need a new brain. I just needed a new way to run it. Now, if you've ever worked with computers, you know the classic keyboard shortcut to rebooting an operating system. It's Control, Alt, Delete. I thought if I were to apply this to my life, I don't want to delete anything. Sure, it sounded very tempting, but deletion is not healing. So I thought, okay, instead of Control, Alt, Delete, what if I press Control, Alt, Shift? And that's when things started to change. So that night, I closed my book and I stopped spiraling. Not because I had everything controlled, but I took one small action. I breathed. That's it. You see, control is not about having it all figured out. I realized, okay, I couldn't control the exam, but I could control one chapter, one moment, one breath. And that's step 1, control. Control the situation before it controls you. You see, when you consciously take control, you're activating your prefrontal cortex, which is the command center of your brain. And that automatically calms down your amygdala, which you can imagine as the fear alarm of your brain. So what happens when you calm down your amygdala? You decrease your stress levels and you're better able to regulate your emotions. So once you stop trying to control everything, you start controlling something that actually matters, you. Now, once you take control, you will be forced to face the beliefs that you have built your identity around. For me, it was do more, be more, never stop. And I soon realized that those beliefs were made out of fear. Fear of not being enough, fear of being average. And when fear drives you, you will start mistaking survival for success. So, I shifted my perspective. And that's step 2, alternate. Alternate your lenses. I challenged my internal narrator that would say, oh, you didn't get 100. Okay, but did I learn something I didn't know yesterday? Oh, you're falling behind. But behind who? On whose timeline are we going on? This is called cognitive reframing. So what you're doing is, you're taking your default thought and you're asking yourself, what else could this mean? Over time, you create new neural pathways in your brain. And thanks to neuroplasticity, your brain is literally rewiring itself to think differently. And then came step 3, shift. This was the hardest part. Because once you take control, once you alternate your lenses, you're left with a terrifying question. Who am I without my achievements? And that terrified me because for the longest time, my identity was built like a resume. I wasn't Udita. I was the topper, the achiever, the girl who never fails. But I soon realized I don't want to be the girl who's only as good as her last win. I want to be the girl who builds because she believes, not because she wants to prove. I want to be the girl who researches because she wants to redefine the field she's researching, not because she wants to impress someone. And when you start acting from that place, not of perfection, not of fear, but of purpose, that's when things start to change. Because when you act in line with your values, those old pathways of fear and pressure erase, and new ones open up, ones that are built on peace and resilience. You stop needing to prove yourself and start being yourself. And that's when your brain stops glitching and starts thriving. So what happens when you control Alt Shift? You don't just reboot, but you reclaim. You reclaim your thoughts, your pace, yourself. Because the goal was to not be perfect. The goal was to be free. Free to breathe, free to fall, and free to rise as someone real. Not what the world expects from you, not what your resume says about you, but who you really are, even when nobody's watching. So Control Alt Shift isn't just a restart, but it's a return to you.